Hi, this is Genesis with Sozo Education and Beauty Supply. I would like to introduce you to my nail art board. You can purchase this on my website, and this would be the full kit contents. It would be everything that you need to get started with any of their multimedia, 3D, hand-painted nail art competitions. So you have a choice of your tip colors. We either have white, the natural, or clear. The reason why you would get two packages is because each one of these only has one size of each size of tip. So you have to have two of them in order to do a graduation of your tip. So to have like two number ones, two number threes, what have you. So you get those. And then these are the extreme stilettos so that you can cut them down to your 2 inches for the competition. You get 10 magnets that you will put onto the back of each of the tips, and then your board. This is the really special part of this whole kit. So it is a 1/4 inch in thickness, following the rules that Nail Pro has set out. And then this metal piece on here will allow the magnets or the tips to be able to stick to it. So you can use this in your working process. I'll give you an example. So this particular piece, is already lined up and set out. But during this, in order to get the pieces to flow from one to the other, you need to be able to set them next to each other to line up all of your pieces. So you can use this board to use while you're actually creating, but you can also use it as a display board. If you feel like you might damage this, say get paint on the edges of it or something like that, we also have what I call the metal working board. So this is a thicker piece of metal. It's very, very sturdy, that will allow the tips to stick to it as well. And you can see here from the markings that I was lining all the tips close to each other so that I could paint, that scenery or get my lines done out. But then you can separate them as well for getting down into the curve of the tip, or to play around with your tip placement for your overall design. Because this is completely metal, you can reuse it over and over again with no worries of not being able to get the paint off or what have you, because acetone will, or even cleanser if it's acrylic paints, will remove any of the residue that's left onto there with no problem. And you can keep this board very nice to be able to turn in your artwork. Now, one thing that you would have to add to this if you were going to be doing a submission, you cannot have any type of reflective surface. So normally you would go and just cut out construction paper, poster board paper, what have you, for whatever color background that you would want, and then you would attach it to this. So I have not included this piece only because if you say wanted a red background because it would go better with your artwork, you have some versatility with it, but you've always got that secure magnet on the background. So going back to the actual piece, this is my actual submission for the competition in Orlando 2018. And the rules say that the tips cannot be connected to each other, because the reasoning behind this whole competition would be that you would be able to take each one of these and put these onto your actual nails and decorate your model for fantasy or what have you. So they have to all be removable from each other. But as a judge, if I were to look at this, I might think that this piece, the hat, and the barrette were connected to multiple tips, and therefore I would receive a point deduction. But because of the magnet that's underneath this board, the judge could go in and safely remove this entire tip, therefore revealing that it is not attached to the tip that's next to it, and you haven't broken any of the rules. I can't tell you how many times at the end of a award ceremony people are going up and upset because they thought that they followed all of the rules, and this is kind of a simple way for the judges to be able to actually pick up and verify that. Some people use clay instead of actual acrylic, so with the fact that they could come in and actually analyze top, bottom of everything, it's kind of a safeguard for all the time that you've put into doing your piece. I want to show you a salon application as well for this. This board I purchased from AliExpress, and the backing was just a plain paper backing. So I added one of the metal sheets, used some adhesive, the spray mount adhesive, to glue it onto the back of it securely. And then after I took these different nail art classes, I then added the same magnets onto the back of them, so you could place these wherever you wanted to and to keep them more organized. It's inevitable that I took this faces class with Anna at a separate time than when I had taken this one. But if I was lining up all of my tips as I took all the different classes, I would have some stilettos, some ovals, some in the coffin shapes. So this salon application allows you to be a little bit more organized, to even create specials. Say you wanted to get one of the smaller magnetic boards that they have at the craft stores, you could then take and customize for your holidays, put all of your seasonal tips in a more elegant display to have out for your clients, and say have one board priced out, for any of these designs it would be $10 extra or what have you. So a great salon application as well, not just for the average competitor. Now, some tips and tricks that I have with them. These are chess pieces with magnets attached to them. This you could also buy on AliExpress or eBay, and they are for nail art display tips. You get 10 chess pieces and then one of these little stones that would allow you to have a little bit of grip as you're working with your tips. By placing the magnet portion on top, now you have a little bit more to hold on to as you're working. And to specifically make them work with my magnetic tips, I secured these shelf supports onto them, so you can put the tip onto there. I'll use one of these as an example. So if I was working on this, I would just magnet it to it. If I was working with gel, I could then take this whole thing and pop it into the lamp, or remove and just put the bottom portion into the lamp by using these. It's pretty handy. And then if you were doing an entire background all at one time, you could line them all up. And these ones I've actually customized by taking off some of the extra on the sides. So I'll show you the manufacturer. It comes rounded with a magnet in the center of it. So if I were to put this up to here, once it has a tip on the top of it, I would not be able to sit them as close together to lay out your scenery as if you just take a file and cut off the little edge right here. So from the bottom angle, looks like it's more of an oval shape instead of the circle to allow them to sit closer to each other. The magnet really, honestly, I think it's, you know, it was something that's really saved me, because trying to learn how to complete these pieces, as well as you know, paying attention to the rules of the competition, kind of got overwhelming. So this has a lot of versatility to it. Some people like to work holding something back behind, so you can also take the magnet and stick it to that tip. If you have magnets that you've purchased for doing your magnetic gel polish, same thing. You might have to flip these around because if it doesn't stick to it right away, it kind of like polarizes away. Then just take this magnet out, flip it over to the other side, and then it would adhere just fine. Again, just more versatility in how you want to work with them. One thing that I would caution you, when I did this piece, the very first step with it was to do my background, and I wanted to have it be more of a metallic look to it, like you were looking deep into the ocean. So I decided to use a magnetic polish. And if you can see right on the inside of here, there's a little black dot. So not thinking ahead of time, I have cut down all of my tips, applied my magnets onto the backs of them, lined them all up on my working board to create a flowing background. And with the magnetic gel polish, it now created this negative space in the center of the tips that you can't get rid of, because that's what it's designed to do, right? The magnetic polish is designed to work with these guys, so it just automatically pushes it away. So if you're going to work with some type of magnetic polish, I would suggest that you do that ahead of time and go back to the traditional way of using your tips, which on the chest pieces, you would put a handy tack on top of here that you could get from any office supply store. And then once you've got that on there, put your tip down into it, do all your magnetic work for the background, and then go in and add your magnets to the back to complete the rest of your piece. It was definitely something that hindsight, but I did not want to go back and spend all of the time removing everything and creating these again. So I decided to go ahead and go with it and learn from my mistakes. So we're going to talk about an easy way, let me do this with the white tips, to get your 2-inch tip from the packages. I generally use the higher sizes first, because you have a little bit more room to be able to work with them. So size 1 and size 2. Size 0. Okay, with these particular packages, the largest one is a size 0. Some of them, the largest might be a size 1. It just depends on the manufacturer that they come from. Because the number is always on the very edge of the tip, and I want to make sure that I don't get them confused, I put the number at the top of the tip first. So before I get my creation on there, I can keep them all organized properly. Then using a quilting ruler, and this was a tip that was given to me by Brenda Skirmont, which so amazing. I was very thankful of this because it really gives a precise measurement. I would take the tip, put it with the curved side down, and line it right up against with the little ruler guide here at 2 inches. And then once you go in to cut your tip, you can do one of two things. Using your tip cutter like this, you would have about 1/8 of an inch or so of room to be able to file down your tip. If you want to cut it exactly at 2 inches, then I would flip it around this way, and the blade is going to be on this side of it, so you would cut it exactly at 2 inches. I like to file mine when I'm done, so I would take this like that, and then now, because you can see it's kind of crooked on there, so now I would work and straighten it out a little bit. And if they're slightly over the 2 inches, you would still be good. You just want to try to get them as close as possible. So this allows for just that little bit more refinement of it. And then you can go back and check and see if you need to trim it down anymore. But just with that little bit of filing, you're at your 2 inches. So that's my tip for that, for getting them all prepared. When you go in to actually place the magnets, find my little magnet here. These are very, very strong magnets. So you're not going to have any problem with them moving while you turn in your artwork. Okay, I'm just using a acrylic mixture that I would not use on anybody's nails. It's basically a combination of a bunch of stuff I tried to mix, because this doesn't have to be anything special. No one's going to see the bottom of it. And I always apply the magnet, the actual magnet itself, into the center of the tip, because I think it gives a better anchoring. If I were to apply it on the edge here, then when it's sitting onto the board, this side's going to be really secure, and then this side's going to kind of come up a little bit. So this is my goal, is to apply it into the center. And I like using my working board for this process, because it allows the magnet to sit flat in the end. So I'm going to try to grab a really large ball of acrylic. I'm using a size 12 brush. I bleed out any of the excess so that when I place the ball in the center, it's going to be drier. I'm going to do one more ball, not quite as large. And then just work it in a little bit. And the idea is that I'll be able to drop the magnet straight into the center of here. You don't have to worry about polarity at all, because it's attaching to the metal, not another magnet. Now from here, after it's, set in there for just a second, I'm going to flip it over and leave it set onto this board. What this is going to do is make sure that the acrylic is not sitting on the edges of the tip here, so that if I did it this way, let it dry completely, and then flipped it over, it might not sit completely flat up against the board. If you press it down during the drying process, you're actually going to flatten out the tip just slightly, so that the edges right here sit more perfectly flush. Why something like this would matter is that when you put all, especially for the hand painted, when you go in to display your boards, you can see right now it has that little bit of a gap right here. And then when I press it flat, that gap goes away. So if you press it down during the curing process, it will allow that gap to disappear, and then you would get more points for a more clean application, because they can't look underneath there and see all of the glue residue from using a hot glue gun or what have you. And then if you did, like, see on this one, if there was any of the excess acrylic that was on the underneath, it's because it's the metal, it'll go away. Or if it's hardened, you can chip it off with, tweezers or something like that to get rid of any excess that might be on the underneath of it. So I would leave it in place, let it fully cure, do all of the rest of them, and then by the time you come back, you would be able to completely remove that tip and it'll be flush on the bottom. If you guys have any questions about the nail art board or how this could help you in your salon or competitions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Facebook is Thozo Education and Beauty Supply. We are also on Instagram, YouTube, and Snapchat. We would love to help you in starting competing. Thanks and have a great day.